Looking back on my gaming habits, there's only been a few games that have truly captured my attention completely. They've tickled my brain, ignited my imagination, and drawn me into their world and gameplay so much so that's all I've wanted to play. It happened when I first discovered worker placement games for the first time with Agricola nearly 13 years ago. I couldn't get enough of the social deception introduced in the Resistance that allowed the host, which is usually me, to pull up a chair and play the game as well. And lastly, on March 3rd, 2017, I received in the mail my very own copy of Gloomhaven, a game that ultimately changed my gaming life. I was primarily a boring covered, themeless, no luck, no nonsense Euro lover. Don't get me wrong, I still love those games. But Gloomhaven introduced a system of high fantasy and adventure to the highly strategic card play that would normally be stuck in a stuffy old Euro with a man frowning on the cover. Now, my gaming group fell in love. We played Gloomhaven 2 or even 3 times a week, every week. We devoured the campaign, and it's so much fun. But I haven't really touched the game for nearly 4 years. We played it to death. And I've been on the quest to find my next great addiction, my next true love in cardboard format. I'm Ben, and I'm just a man seeking meeple. So this is Oathsworn Into the Deepwood, an epic in scope boss battler where each of the 22 chapters is split into a choose-your-own-adventure style story mode and a card-based tactical combat encounter. Right now, it's the hottest thing since sliced bread that's been toasted. That's hot. In fact, it's the highest average rated game of all time on Board Game Geek, sitting at a whopping 9.3. That's a whopping 0.6 points higher than Gloomhaven. It's really in another stratosphere. And that's not to mention that the game is big. Ugh. Really big. Ugh. Really, really big. Oh my goodness. Whew. Ugh. And this isn't even the all-in. Let me show you a little bit of the game, and I'll tell you if I really do think this game deserves the greatest of all time kind of rating that it has generated. Whew.
Green mud sucks at your boots, every stride a challenge as you trudge through the rain. Your hands grip the thick iron cable of the wire road, pulled taut through rings, sunken into the trunks of hideous trees. For days now, it has been the only evidence of humanity's existence in the Deepwood. Clinging to this lifeline has not worked for everyone, though. You are one less than when you left Verum. It was nothing any of you saw, just a thrum in the wire behind you, and then a scream disappearing into the dark.
That was the taste of the first few lines of the grim and dark story read by James Cosmos himself, who narrates the whole game if you decide you'd rather not read. It's what you'll listen to each time you start a new chapter in the story half of the gameplay. And I really do mean half of the gameplay. As the campaign goes by, the story portion can take anywhere from half an hour to an hour and a half or even more. This is a beefy and satisfying portion of the game, full of difficult decision, nail-biting tension, surprising secrets, twists, and tests. And honestly, it's a testament to how well it's written for me to say that I'm not sure what half of the game I prefer. This would easily be far too long in any other game. But luckily, I think it's easy to say that this game has the best written story in board games to date. Period. Bar none. It's compelling, engaging, and interesting. It's well written with amazing world building. Now, it's no Brandon Sanderson novel. It can't be character focused since you can be whoever you'd like to be as the star of the story. But the story they tell and the world that they build is one worth experiencing. However, if you're in a hurry There is a quick start guide to walk you through the major story beats and award you the benefits and punishments you may have earned through the story, and you can skip it. But I really wouldn't recommend it, not on your first playthrough. Now, this story portion of the game isn't just sitting and listening to an audiobook. No, it's a game. And it really takes inspiration from an unexpected source. More than anything else, it reminds me of the old game Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. You see, you're usually tasked in a race against the clock. A race against the clock to solve a mystery or progress the story in some way. You do this by traveling to locations on a map, hearing story snippets, collecting clues, performing skill checks, and solving the occasional puzzle. As you do so, you'll find many opportunities to gain benefits, tokens, or wounds, which will stay with you in the battle to come. Your choices can really help or really hurt. It eventually culminates in a grand reveal of what is hidden in the mystery box that you'll then have to fight. Now, these skill checks aren't new. Roll the dice to determine if you reach the amount required to succeed or fail, sure. However, Oathsworn includes the addition of a push your luck element, more on that later, which does add a little more choice, tension, and excitement that can typically be found in other games. It's nice. I feel like it's my fault for failing at times, not necessarily unlucky, although that can happen too. And there's plenty of choices to make throughout the story, some of which have very real consequences. Adding permanent allies to your party, adding events to the event decks, kind of like Gloomhaven, making enemies or even ending their lives. Most chapters are also split into 2 different paths, 2 very different and distinct investigations to undergo, which you'll have to choose which to prioritize and which to abandon. Now, that said, it always will end in the same place. This is a game with a specific story to be told. The choices you make will not radically change the outcome of the story most of the time. It's closer to a novel than a role-playing game, and I think it's what I hear as the most common criticism from the people that I've played with. They want to have more of an impact on what happens in the story. Not every decision matters, but they do follow you in what's about to come. Now that you've collected all those tokens and revealed your big bad, it's time to fight. This is where 3 of those optional boxes come into play, containing nothing but minis. If you didn't choose to use the standee version instead, which fits nicely into just the base box. And minis is a bit of a stretch. These things are honkin' and pretty freaking amazing if I do say so myself. Now, I'm no great painter, so don't judge the paint jobs, but the size and scale of this game makes painting for amateurs so much easier and much more fun. And there are some truly fantastic models in here, if you're so inclined. The twisted trees, the moss-ridden terrain, the enormous monstrosities that you'll face throughout, and of course, the heroic characters themselves. There's even the option to have swappable arms to show a variety of weapons, like this. You'll have to choose 4 of them for each fight, but luckily the game scales remarkably well with the option to play full-fledged characters or a simplified companion that's just as powerful but far more simple to control. It makes soloing the game actually fairly easy and honestly any player count manageable and fun. Though I will say that my personal favorite and the vast majority of my plays have been with the full complement of 4 players. Now, each encounter has its own rules and its own AI-driven deck, with the next action face up to plan around. And I must say, each boss is unique and feels utterly and totally different from all the others. It's truly incredible. And due to spoilers, I won't be showing anything besides Mama Rat here, but the sheer variety every time you play is one of Oathsworn's greatest strengths. And that's saying a lot. The basics of how you play are that all of your character's unique abilities are listed on cards and required a certain amount of energy or animus to perform. The depth lies in that when you play a card, it has to go down on cooldown into a different value between 0 and 3. Cards don't just rotate down back into your hand on their own. Instead, you must battle flow them back into your hand yourself. And the only way to do this is to play another card of the same cooldown level, which will push all cards that are currently at that level down 1 step. This makes it easy to get low cooldown cards back into your hand, but requires a lot of work and manipulation to get those most powerful abilities back in your hand from 3 to 2 to 1 and eventually 0. Item abilities are also played into cooldown piles, but they don't cause battle flow themselves. So this is a game about timing and efficiency in selecting your actions and when to use your items. Cards aren't just for offensive abilities either. They can also be played whenever you are attacked to bolster your defense. This requires no animus and is often the difference between life and death. So the choice of when to play and when to save your most powerful cards really is a fun puzzle. Speaking of defense, the way attacks work in this game are a little different. See, there are 4 levels of dice in this game, from the lowly white to the destructive black. Your equipment determines what dice you can roll, along with as many white dice as you'd like. Crits are exploding, so big numbers can come. But the big caveat is that every die has blanks. And if you roll 2 blanks, the whole attack is a miss. So every attack is a push your luck puzzle. Not to mention, you can swap between cards that have the faces of the dice or rolling the dice, whichever you wish, and whenever you wish. One allows for card counting and more consistent results. One can be a bit of a gamble. And gambles can sometimes pay off or be disastrous. I guess that's the nature of gambling. Of course, there's a ton of mitigation in the form of reroll tokens and empowerment tokens that will upgrade your dice or let you reroll them. The damage dealt is divided by the armor. So if I deal 6 damage and the armor is 2, that's 3 health tick down off their total. Nice. Now, I'm typically not one to fall in love with the dice combat system. It's random and punishing, and I often feel that luck has more to do with the victor than strategy. That said, luck does add an element of surprise, suspense, and tension. It can lead to memorable moments of success or failure, beating the odds. I feel that Oathsworn really balances this by capitalizing on what the best parts of luck while minimizing the worst. Being able to push your luck with every attack puts the ownership on you of how much you want to gamble. Big hits feel even more exciting because you choose to swing big, but at a higher risk. Tokens galore help you mitigate those rolls, especially when they're important. And having cards ensures that over time, results are consistent and that you can build your strategy around what's left unplayed. Being cooperative, if luck swings for or against me, It's felt among the whole group rather than just individually. And shared success or failure is always a little more palatable, I find. And I didn't even mention the big rule that failure in this game is rewarded. Yeah, a miss in this game might sound disastrous at first, but it gives back all the tokens that were spent on the attack, plus one more of your choice. And tokens are powerful. So missing never feels quite as terrible as you expect. It's not good, but it has a nice cushion fall. Now, I haven't even mentioned the constant cycle of broken old equipment and gaining new equipment, the vastly different characters, the progression of adding new cards, tokens, or even animus, and the sheer adrenaline rush of opening that behemoth and figuring out just how you'll have to take this completely new and different beast out. Oathsworn has a lot of rules. It has a lot of secrets, a lot of reveals. It's just a lot. Too much to say here. What I will say is that in playing around 50 hours of this game, including over half the campaign and several separate plays of early chapters, I can honestly say that Oathsworn has become my newest addiction and board game love. Everything about it is polished, fine-tuned, and fun. It looks good, it plays good, it feels good. Now, does Oathsworn deserve the highest average rating of all time on Board Game Geek? Honestly, I'm not sure. It might not be my absolute favorite game of all time, but honestly, it's pretty freaking good. And I think that's answer enough. With all that said, I'm Man-Seeking Meeple. And have yourself an amazing game night soon.